It's time.
It's time. And you know what that means, Mike, right?
What's that?
It's time for another town hall. And you know what this one is?
Number
Sure.
129.
I thought the last one was 129, but today is February 12th, and they do good job of tracking. My team, I've noticed, very good at sequential numbers. They can,
Encouraging.
yeah, wow, they're good at amazing at everything, but the
Well,
sequential
I'm
number thing.
I'm glad you said that, but last time was 128, but we actually had on the slideshow 127, but it was
Oh,
128 last time.
I knew there was some sort of incongruency there. See how my brain works, Michael?
once you get into the triple digits, then things start going haywire. But that's a good problem to have, I think. If
When
once
we
you
get to 1,000, if I'm not
yes,
dead, or it's not being run by my son or and your kids, the twins, it'll be the Lawsons and the best, but it'll be the next generation.
could be.
Anyways, welcome to our town hall. And the town hall today's definitely going to be a very town hall atmosphere because I'm going to try to get some folks talking about things, but
Please
uh,
do.
let's move on and talk about you and me.
All right.
So, for those of you that don't know, I am the CEO and co-founder of Best Innovation Group, and been in credit unions for a long, long time. And when the pandemic broke out, we had started big in 2014. Obviously, 6 years later, the pandemic hit. We were going pretty strong. We had a lot of employees and whatnot, and it really hit us hard. And I wasn't sure what to do. So I said, "Well, wow, it's snowing where Lou is. Generally, he's in Florida, so that's
Really?
distracting. Very cool." Um, anyway, so I wasn't sure what to do. So I called one of my
Your
best friends in the
speakers
world,
not
someone that I've
working.
known for a long time, which is Michael. And I said, let's do a town hall and let's just let anybody come
Yep.
and let's just try to facilitate sharing ideas.
Mhm.
And to his credit, without even missing a beat, he said, I'm there. And has been for
I'm
ever
in.
since then for 5 years. Yeah.
I'm in.
So that's what I do. And then if you're here and you don't know who Mike Lawson is, shame on you.
Oh,
He
the
is
horror.
credit union royalty at this point.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Um,
Maybe
oh
the
no, it's
jester, the
true.
court jester. I'll do
I
that.
saw you host. I saw you host in Vienna a wonderful program for the World Council of Credit Unions.
Mhm.
I have pictures, and you were in a handsome suit,
Yes, I
and
would.
you were in front of all these flags. You looked official. It was very cool. I remember you did the little parade of people with all the
That was
flags.
fun. That was really a lot of
It
fun.
was really fun. Yeah, it was, and the world as it is now is getting a lot smaller. It's something we discussed then when we were in Vienna, and then another time in Singapore. So
Oh,
if you haven't
Singapore was
checked
a
out,
blast. Yeah.
Singapore was a blast.
And you flew your drone. You flew your drone, John Best, in the convention center.
I did, yeah, and
Inside.
I also flew it outside and didn't get caned, so I was pretty happy about that.
Oh, that was classic.
Um, somebody wouldn't come with me. Somebody was fearful, said he had kids, and
No.
yeah. But anyways, I digress. So Mike Lawson is on top of all the news and what's going on in the credit industry, and today we're going to lean on him a little bit because there's a lot going
Oh, I
on.
don't know about that. I want to
Oh
lean
yeah.
on the guests, on our audience. They're the
Oh
ones
yeah.
who are
Oh yeah.
there.
But you've had a couple good things around what we'll be talking about today. A couple good interviews,
Couple.
I think, that are going to be valuable knowledge. So let's move on to generally he's usually with us. I don't know if he's going to be in the slideshow. Nope. No Glenn Sarvati. He's out today. So
Oh no, Glenn.
yeah, no Glenn.
Oh.
But we are going to talk bingo cards. So
Oh,
hang
okay.
tight. America's Credit Unions, formerly CUNA and NAFQ, merging. By the way, that is, to my way of thinking, that's the game right now is merging. I have had so many credit unions ask me, CEOs say, "Hey, John, how could I do 8 of them in a year without killing my staff?" And I said, "Well, you could invent an army of robots." Anyways, I'll get there. Um, America's Credit Union is a fantastic entity now combined of both. It's going to be very valuable given what I think we're going to talk about today and what's upcoming around some of the things that are out there that are starting to bleed their way into the world. And for those of you that haven't been, really check out their council's website, and we'll have that new one here soon with all of the different councils that they provide. If you haven't been, you should go. If you have been, you know what I'm talking about. It's not just a place to go see people speak and do those sorts of things. It's really a place where you can interact with your peers. And the best part about credit unions, its superpower of this industry is the fact that we are a collaborative industry. If you go, and I have been, by the way, but Michael, have you ever been to a banking conference?
A what?
A banking conference, an actual
Yes, I've
bank.
been to ICBA. ICBA, I've
Okay,
been there a
ICBA
couple
is a
times.
good example. I actually went to like a one that's for the big guys. Like we had all these banks from around the world, like Dubai and everything in Lisbon. They had me speak at back when
Oh,
I
I
was
remember
doing
you
the
doing
Sea
that.
Ledger stuff.
Yeah.
And I sat at lunch one day at a big round table, and the Bank of Dubai was there. The bank of like the CTO from what's the one with it? Santander? That was it. And there's another one, another big S one. I can't remember what it was. And then there was the German one, which was the original First Credit Union, which is now a big bank in Germany. Anyways, and they were chatting, but it was more about the weather. And I noticed this stark difference of like if that was a credit union conference and that level of people, they'd have been going, "Hey, what are you using for this? Or what are you doing for that?" And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just not the kind of conversation that happens there. Although I do have an interesting story. That same day, it made news that we had hacked, we had, as in America, had been watching the Bank of Dubai's ACH, and they found us in their network. Um, and the news broke as I was sitting there next to the guy. And so that was a little awkward.
Oh, wow.
Hey, how you doing? It wasn't me personally, but
That would make some awkward conversation.
it
Yes,
was,
indeed.
yeah. Well, if we would talk, but we didn't.
They don't
Um,
talk. Yeah, it's weird. 'Cause I experienced the same thing at ICBA. That
did you?
great
I
bunch
would
of
have thought maybe
people,
community
very
banks would be a
nice,
little more
but
community. Okay.
nobody was talking about case studies, success stories, how they're using this, how they're using that, what's working, what's not. Got none of that. I got a lot of the weather talk like you talked about, John. So, but yeah, very unlike a credit union conference where people are collaborating and learning from each other. And yeah, so yeah, very different audience for sure.
Yeah, and so that's where you can go to experience something like that. It's definitely worth your time.
Yep, agreed.
Illuma. So with today's fraud, AI being in the forefront and it is rising, everyone in the industry will tell you that. If you want to have a lot of fun at one of those tables, just say, "Hey, what was the last thing to hit you?" and just get ready. It's a great icebreaker, and you can sit and listen to people for hours talk about just crazy stories that I've never heard before in all the years I've been doing this. And those crazy stories are being facilitated by AI. And one of the things you're going to have to do is have a better way of figuring out that your members are who they say they are. Illuma provides an incredible voice platform. They're QSO, they get it. And I love Melind and his group because they're constant, like, he was I was with him once before he even started the company, and we were out in Florida, and I had started working with cloning voices. And he said, I said, "Man, I'd love to test this," and he was all for it. He let me test against him.
Why not?
And I won that day. It did work, but you know what he did? He went back and worked until it didn't, and kept on me.
Yep.
And that is who you want as a partner. And
That's
that's really
Melind.
what we're all looking for, is not vendors, but partners.
Yep.
And Illuma makes a great partner. Speaking of that, Typhoon's going to be on soon. They've got some big announcements coming this year. I'm very excited about those. And I was just talking to somebody today about, it's actually Juan Luna, who I love from Municipal Credit Union out in New York. And we were talking about the act of onboarding, their bonus season is coming up for the employees and whatnot. And, it was looking at these payments platforms as being much more prolific in our network than they have been before. They need to be mixed into everything. And his answer, question was, "Hey, how do you deal with someone who's getting has $50,000 over at Bank of America, wants to open a new account, and we want to include in that process the ability to move that money over and open that CD." And this is where things like Typhoon are going to be really important, because they're building a modern payments rail that will allow people to choose from real-time payments, all these different things.
Yep.
And it can be mixed into all these areas. It's going to need to be mixed into account opening. It's going to need to be mixed into member onboarding. It's going to have to be a bigger part of home banking, because payments, person to person is really starting to be a big thing. You go look at Venmo. You ever look through the Venmo logs? I like looking at those sometimes. Sometimes I'll just doom scroll the Venmo. All my kids and his friends and all these kids that I had for some reason, that from when I coached wrestling, that are all now adults, I watch them go back and forth with the same $20, I bought you a pizza, you bought me a pizza, which I love seeing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
as kids, those friends that helped you out when you were broke, remember those guys?
Mhm.
you know, those are your true friends. Those are the guys that will be there for life. And now they have a way to facilitate that because, you know, my plan was to never pay them back, but now that Venmo's made it so easy, I figure a whole lot of people are going to come looking for me. Anyways,
Yes.
iPhone, look at it for payments. Let's move forward here. Innovation Club. I'm going to spend too long on this. We spent some time last time. Had a great meeting yesterday with Willis Chang, who's one of our members. He's actually taking one of our innovations, which is pretty cool. I may play it today, but it's basically a imagine a personal podcast just for you, Mike Lawson.
Oh, okay.
Like that's sent to you. It's a real podcast, but it talks about your finances. It talks about your creating an account. It says, "Good morning, Mike. You have this much money in this account. This is coming out. And oh, by the way, you're doing good here, but if you might want to consider moving this money over here, those sorts of things." About 2 minutes long, and it was pretty cool. And Willis and I've been working on this for a few years, and we're just playing around with it. That's the kind of stuff we do. And the idea is, hey, because he's part of the Innovation Club, he can run with that. He can prototype it. He can take and look. It came out of our collective thinking, and we're proud of that. So if you haven't checked it out, if you want to join, if you're looking for a place to meet with like-minded other CTOs, folks who are already going down the road or maybe ahead of you, and we don't care how big or small you are. What we care about is how you're thinking about things. Are
Mhm.
how you look at the world with regard to innovation. And if you're trying to find a way to see around the curve, and I'm not talking about buying the next shiny thing, I'm talking about if you're trying to find a way to just know how to plan, what's quantum going to do to you? How important is RPA? What do you have to have it in place? Are the systems you're buying today going to be, congruent with or in Congress with the systems that you're going to have to put in the future for table stakes? And that's what this is all about. It's not about the 3 and the 2 and the 3 year. It's about the 5 to 7 year, and that's important. So yeah, I think it's something that you might be interested in. We'd love to have you take a picture or go to bigfintech.com. And also as a part of it, you get some hours so you can implement this stuff from us. And this is the one that seems to get taken advantage of a lot. As part of it, I will come speak to your board or whoever you want me to speak to for free. Well, other than travel, even if it's your kid's birthday party, I'm in. So especially actually if it's your kid's birthday party, because I love those. So yeah, come check us out. Next.
Well, and this is pretty unique in the industry too, John. You have to say. I mean, nobody else is doing something like this, so it's pretty cool what
It
what
is
you're doing.
different. Yeah, it is very different. Mike, I was thinking we should invite you to our next one. I'd love for you to be a fly on the wall and
For
right.
sure. Yeah.
We'll have to talk about it.
Because Willis Chang, he's a connector, right?
Yeah, yeah. Willis that's a good place for him to be because he is definitely connected
Exactly.
to the world. He is what I call a force multiplier in the creating industry. If you don't know him, he's just a
And
wonderful
did you
person.
know a little factoid? He was a crasher just like a couple years ago. He was like, he's like this big technology executive at Connecta Federal Credit Union, but he decided to go do the crasher program at GAC one year. This is
Yeah,
like a couple years ago.
yeah. That just seems like
Awesome. That's
you
something
know,
so cool.
it's like it's almost too nice. It's a little
Yes.
suspicious,
Yeah.
but I'll let it go.
Yeah.
Hey, have you ever played bingo, Mike?
Yes, I have.
Well, yeah, you can play Big Go. And what Big Go is our
Big Go.
predictions manifold, right? So you go in and these are the latest call numbers. You got 10, 15, 28, 32, 37. You can go to a website, which I think we have the list here somewhere. You can actually download your bingo card. So step one, you can click the link. They're putting one in. You add your name, and then it will track the bingos. And we've had a few that have just been called. For example, we said that one of the options could be that OpenAI or some very big heretofore sort of non-Super Bowl marketing company would market. Now, I don't know if all of you saw during the Super Bowl this weekend, but OpenAI had a very big advertisement during that. And then I think Musk was right behind it going, I'll buy that for $1. But
Exactly.
or 100 billion or whatever it
Yeah,
is. So here's the
194
stuff we
billion.
have. There was 5 Super Bowl ads that featured AI. We confirmed that. The Nvidia stock crashed because of DeepSeek. That just happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure about 11 now.
What's that?
I'm not sure about number 11 now, so we'll see.
No, well, we'll see.
It
And
bounced back.
then 31 and 28 are all happened. So these are the latest. If you haven't done it, go out, check it out.
Oh,
The
look.
battle over the CU Texas guys, which we're going to talk about today. So yeah, we'd love to have you. We're not doing anything with your emails. We're not, it's just a way to interact and keep track of the business and hopefully maybe, have you thinking about things as time goes on and be a part of a bigger community.
Look
So
at number 67, 30 credit union acquisitions of banks announced.
you would
Wow.
think that's high, but you know what last year's number was?
It was was it like a
It was
dozen
the
or something?
highest ever.
Wasn't
It
it
was 20.
20? Okay, yeah.
So I don't know. We'll
Yeah, I
see.
see that happening, and they're very open to it. So yeah,
Well, unless they're sitting around the table with their other bank friends.
they won't say any words. They won't say a word. Yeah.
Yep. My favorite is actually 71.
71. Venmo establishes direct merchant connections.
I actually have seen that a couple times already where you could pay with Venmo and apps. So that's usually, I think Lou would agree,
I
that's
see
usually
Lou nodding his head. Yes.
yeah, that's the stepping stone. That's the gateway to becoming in the merchant app. As a matter of fact, I was just at this cool little Cuban cafe that's down here by my house, and their little retail iPad floppy around thing, had Venmo as an option. So it's coming. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's talk about this is the big one, the shutdown
CFPB?
of the CFPB. And what that means, the 10% cap on credit income raise, that's very interesting. And then of course, as always, the tax exempt status. So let's get rolling with the CFPB. So what do we know so far and how will it affect us? So from the get-go, when I saw this, my first thought about this was, you know, was what's going to happen to the things that are being mandated by the CFPB. So for example, open banking, right? That was where I was going to start. But let's talk about it. So who wants to open it up? Have you been following this, Lou?
Yes, I have. We just had a discussion internally about this today. And then Glenn sent me a note just this morning. They're on this is their third director in 2 weeks, unless you count Rohit Chopra, which means four directors in 2 weeks. So it is just random at this point. It is random. What's going to happen?
Sure.
You mentioned open banking, but the CFPB has so many. Reg E is something that is a rulemaking from the CFPB, and it is important that Reg E still be complied with, even if the CFPB is not going to do any enforcement. At this point, my prediction is, I just saw on the news today, FDIC possibly being merged with either the OCC or Treasury. Again, random. And so the CFPB's rules that are already in place, remaining in place, but being put someplace else, like I don't know, like Treasury or FinCEN or something like that. But I know for compliance training, we have to do training on Reg UDAP. Was it unfair and deceptive something practices? All these rules are still in place. They're not going to go away just because the CFPB goes away.
Right, that was my take on it too.
Well, then
But
who
check
oversees
this
it?
out. This is their webpage.
Yeah.
That's real. That's not, I didn't make this. I just went there.
Uh-huh.
It's a 404 error. By the way, I don't know if the other day I got a room at a hotel and it was room 404. And when I got up there, it wasn't there.
Wasn't
I'm not
there?
kidding.
Oh gosh.
It happened. But yeah, this is pretty crazy. That so the complaint page looks like it's down. There's a couple things in here that aren't working. But I agree with your assessment that it's not like it can go away, but how are we to react to this? What was, if you don't mind, or if you're allowed to share, I'm assuming your discussion was amongst probably some high level folks at Valera. And I'm just wondering, what was your takeaway?
Basically, continue doing what we're doing regarding open banking. Continue compliance until we hear more, because at this point, TILA, Truth in Lending Act, which is Reg Z. I'm just looking through the list of all of the things. So we're going to continue being compliant. We strongly urge our credit unions and community banks to also do the same. The part we worry about, though, is like payday lenders and others that may take advantage of the fact that there's no temporarily, possibly, there's no supervision, that they can now start to get away with, usury fees that now will put people who rely on payday loans to never get their way out of debt, because they now can like get all these. You want to pay it off? Now we have another fee to pay off your loan, but we can roll that into your next revolving loan.
Yeah.
Right, the
So-
predatory lending stuff that's been out there forever. There's and a lot of it was, so let's go back though. This whole thing was created right after 2008, right?
Mhm.
That seemed like when that was the impetus for the CFPB. And right off the bat, over the years, some of the bigger stories with the CFPB have been things like our friends at Wells Fargo, where the employees were incentivized and
Opening
encouraged
accounts.
to the point of having to fake opening accounts in order to make a living because of, well, whatever it was, the culture there. And that was they got fined a lot for that. They also got fined for a lot of other things. So did Bank of America recently. I believe a credit union they were looking at, which was Navy Federal, because
Mhm.
they did some reporting around their mortgage, the mortgages that they had approved, and felt like there was inequity there amongst the different demographics. And so what I see is most of what the CFPB has done, I feel like has been good for the credit unions, in the sense that I feel like our group is the rule followers. We can't help ourselves. We're kind of the goody two shoes of the banking system. And, the much more corporate sort of approach is much more in the higher level banks, the big banks. Regional banks kind of fall into that same category. And then I feel like ICBM is, or ICBM, but the community banking group is sort of the next layer up from us, do-gooders, but kind of more banky, but usually family owned or have, community cooperation, and they seem to be a little more in the pocket of that. So, what I heard was, or what I read was that much like USAID, their employees were all told to stop doing anything. Don't talk to anyone else. Don't do another complaint. Don't
Don't go in the office.
come to the office until we tell you. And so very much like USAID, presumably, here's my question. Did in that process, the reason that happened at USAID was because the Doge group got a hold of the their underlying banking, or their underlying remittance system or accounts payable system, and saw what they were putting out and what they were doing, and said no. Do you think something similar has happened here, where Elon Musk's group has somehow into this, or is this just pure, we don't want oversight on this, we never have, and is that the way this is headed? I'm just curious as to your take, or anybody else's take on the call.
I'll start the ball rolling. This is just my opinion, but the CFPB has always kind of been favored by Democrats because it protects consumers, and been bashed by some Republicans who see it as government overstepping their boundaries. And here's an opportunity to fix that government overreach with something better.
Yeah. And right. And the idea is that they won't have, anybody to govern the higher fees or the rollovers in the checking and things like that. I know Rob always has an opinion on this. Plus, he has a cool last name. Mr. Goodyear, what are you thinking? Once I get him to unmute there.
Yeah, I think I can't find the button. Once more from the top, because I only paid attention when I heard my name.
Sure.
I apologize.
So the question
my
is-
dog was going crazy outside the door here.
The question is, with if the CFPB goes the way of USAID,
Oh, right, right,
What
right.
what are your thoughts around that? Because as Crayon, we sort of see it as a something. It was created in the ashes of the 2008, 2009 real
Sure.
estate issue, calamity, and now
Mhm.
it has been something in the past. It looks like it's level setting. I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are, given kind of what you've been
Well,
working on.
let me ask you this. Do bad actors follow the rules closely anyway?
No, but when there's oversight, somebody catches it. I mean, for example, we talked about Wells Fargo a minute ago.
I think
Wells
there's a big
Fargo was
lag.
opening.
Well,
Was that?
Wells Fargo's been dealing with stuff for 2 decades,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah.
It's just
But they
catching up to them.
continually get, I
So I
mean,
think there's
before
a
there
lot of
wasn't an
latency.
organization to catch them. Where would you go?
Yeah. I think there's so much latency. Um, um,
That's
that
true. It was way behind the curve. That's no doubt
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
there's so much latency. That bad actors gonna be bad actors, right?
Mhm. So
Um,
you're feeling like, hey, this wasn't an effective government this wasn't effective to begin with, and so
Not
uh and,
necessarily.
and you feel
I
like that
mean,
they're looking to
I think
replace it.
we've got to have rules, right? Um,
We live in
uh,
a world of rules.
we're trying to have a civilization here. So there have to be watchdogs. Now, how effective is government at that? Okay, no comment because that'll lean into the political too far. So there has to be something. And I don't think self-governing organizations are effective either. So I will give you opinions on FINRA that shouldn't be written down. But so will the bad actors fill the vacuum? I don't think the vacuum will exist. I think it's going to pivot. Now, again, bureaucracy, and again, I'm not veering into uh, blue or red politics at all, but bureaucracy is a disaster. It always has been. Politicians should be disqualified if they think that they want to be a politician, right?
Yeah, that's what I
It should
used to
be
say about
compulsory
people that
service.
would come to me and say they wanted to be a manager. I was like, oh, you don't, if you want to be
Yeah,
one,
so
then you don't
you have
know.
no skills is what you're telling me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't know what it's going to take. It's not going to be fun.
right. But yeah, so again, I'll cut to the chase. I don't think the vacuum will be immediately filled with a bunch of bad actors necessarily. That's just my opinion. Um, at the same time, maybe some quick exploits will happen. But again, if you think about the latency, the lag time it takes for enforcement to happen, it's such a long cycle that who knows?
Oh, here's my question though, and I'll pose this to you and Lou and anybody else that wants to pop in and say something. I don't see Scott here today, but um, so my question is this: if they were invented in the aftermath of the 2008, 2009, issue, has their existence prevented that from happening again? Uh, and if they go away, will that happen again, but in a different form? Um, I would argue that some of what happened back then couldn't happen again with technology. However, because we have better tools to go to look through big loan pools as opposed to taking them at their at their face value. We've got and everybody's kind of over that game, but I don't think that'll ever happen again. That's my personal opinion. But something else, some other way to play the game, uh, could definitely be afoot. The question is if this, and remember, it's consumer, right? The NCUA still exists. The SEC still exists. Oversight for regular financial institutions all still exists. This was a consumer area. This was meant to protect consumers. Is there, you know, uh, if that happens, is there some other systemic issue that they are holding the line on that may, become an issue?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, CFPB has been in force, yet we have buy now, pay later, 140, 160% punitive
You mean
scenarios happening
buy
every
now,
day
check
and
cashing now, later?
every day of the week and twice on Sunday, right?
Right.
So it's cat and mouse,
Yeah.
right? You clamp down on one area and clever fees like a convenience fee or a tip with Dave Banking, for example. A freaking tip on ACHing a loan, a horrible loan that you advance on your paycheck that you just took. Come on.
A tip?
You know, they just find
yet-
new ways to characterize things.
Yeah, the banks
so
that
that
grow the most are the Chimes and, you know, these other ones. Those are the guys that are growing like weeds with the same story we have.
Yeah, you know what feeds those weeds?
Uh,
Consumers' money.
I was gonna say poop. But
uh,
I'm not, you know, I mean,
yeah.
you know, fertilizer, it's the word I was looking for.
There
Fertilizer.
we
No, I
go.
mean look at the whole democratization and serving the underbanked. It serves the shareholders.
Certainly.
$4.95 at a time.
Yeah. So Lou, I feel like you had something to say there. You wanna, I see you making,
No,
Faces at my rant.
no,
no.
not at all.
I was contemplating John's question. So the liquidity crisis, which kind of got rolling because of the American subprime mortgage habits that had developed at that point. And now and there was a number of rules like I mentioned, TILA, Truth in Lending Act, and other things preventing no doc loans. Could it happen again with no supervision? Yes, I do think so. Has the CFPB's presence prevented it from happening? Chicken and egg kind of thing. I can't say yes definitively, but I do believe that without some oversight, that yes, it could easily happen again. We could. Like everything, the pendulum swings. Try to get away with as much as you can. We caused a problem. Swing the pendulum far the other way, and it's like we got to put all these rules in place to make sure it never happens again. And then it's like we got too many rules now. We
Then
got
it's
way
time
too
to-
many
yeah,
things,
yeah.
and then it's time to swing the pendulum back again. However, swinging the pendulum back and politics, right? There's there was a lot of effort to DE&I programs. I know I just gone far afield, and maybe the pendulum went a little too far with that. And now we're starting to see it swing with the number of companies abandoning their DE&I programs for better or for worse. So I see a lot of things working like that. So the CFPB, did they start to go too far with mandating open banking? Yes, it's good for consumers to be able to access their data easily, but is that really protecting consumers? Or is that doing something more that the CFPB did not? That's not what their founding was meant to be.
I 100% agree that I've always thought that the mandate for open banking sounded weird coming from the consumer side, given what it was done for with GDPR, right? Which was far more around privacy, and it was meant to sort of create ways for you not to have to share or to be able to share, but individually on a case-by-case basis, your financial information. You know, and so maybe that gets back to Rob's point. I don't know if the intention, I don't know what the intention of the Doge group is okay, we shut down USAID. Is it just gone? Or is it, okay, this thing did some good things, it did a lot of bad
Well, they
things.
still have
and-
300 employees there. They didn't shut down it totally. There's still 300 employees there
Right, but
out of
they're
10,000.
not allowed to do much at the moment. Like
True.
there's been crazy articles all around about, you know, I guess all these programs where like that we've you know, for good or for bad, again, not trying to be blue one way or the other, but like for example, you just had on your show the who was it that was talking about the wildfires? Well, it was
Well, we had
was like-
Westcom on and Jennifer Oliver from Rise,
Yeah.
both of them located
And-
in.
Yeah, and obviously that's an area, not necessarily USA, but something similar where there has been a disaster and you know, I don't think I know I'm sure plenty of and our heart goes out to those folks, plenty of Westcom employees and other Korean California employees who are affected. But but what's the intention, right? Yeah, they even if you keep it at 300 people, it obviously that's like saying, well, they didn't shut
Oh, no,
down
you
the
gutted
airline
it,
completely.
you know,
They still
by
got a few
90%,
pilots
for
and a
sure.
stewardess flying around.
For
Air
sure.
called stewardess, flight attendant, sorry. But yeah. that
But
doesn't make
also,
it
I
an
mean,
airline,
going
I
back to
guess.
the fire, I mean, the foundation has their own, what is that? I can't remember, CU Aid. They have their own thing that
Yep.
that Creighton's can contribute to help out folks in hurricanes and fires and all that type of
Sure, I
stuff.
remember
So
Katrina.
we
We
have
all
our
did that.
internal aid program there for
Right.
sure. So yeah.
But if disasters are going to be uh more frequent, how long do those hold up? But anyways, I was just curious because
Well, isn't the question, John, isn't the question of all these organizations, how effective were they or are they? I think it's just a question of effectiveness.
yeah, I
So, I mean,
agree.
you can go
I
either way
agree.
with
But
these.
what determines effectiveness?
Right.
You
You
know,
know,
on the USAID one, I could see their point in, okay, whole lot of money going out. What are we getting out of it? This one is probably just a lot of FTE. I can't imagine it was, CFPB was putting a lot of money out. And so what was, what are we getting out of it was probably what are we not getting out of it? And so
right.
I don't know. This is curious.
I mean, for example, I mean, how effective was it in fighting payday lending? Did it make a dent in that area? So, I mean, just
No, it didn't. And I agree. It didn't do that at all. But what's weird is I was actually I got a book recently. It was Willis gave it to me about Willis Chang, as again we talked about him earlier, but about there are people, I guess, who want payday lending. They don't want it to go away. And they like it the way it is because they're willing to pay the high fees because they need
consumers, you
that
mean?
turnover.
Yeah.
They need that frequency of cash, but
Right.
just seems like it should be that way. So, all right, well,
Just to interject a quick closing thought. CFPB, to look at it like how much money has it made the government? That's not maybe the most appropriate way to look at it.
No.
I heard on a podcast this morning. It's NPR, so take it with a grain of salt, but because it's left leaning. But CFPB has estimated to have saved/returned to consumers $5 billion annually. So
wow.
between as your mention of suing Wells Fargo, capping overdraft fees, all the various programs that they have and rules, they add up that dollar amount. It's not going to the government. It's not revenue for the government. It is saving consumers. $5 billion a
So,
year.
yeah, I looked at that. I chat put it into I put it into Perplexity, which I love that site, just to see. It says, so I said, what are its key data points since it was created? It says $19.7 billion in consumer relief, 195 million people for relief from it's 5 billion in civil money penalties. They've handled over 4 million complaints. The 50 million people have gone to their Ask CFPB database for answers. They answer about 3,000 complaints every day. They filed 29 enforcement actions in 2023. But they only had 6 at that point that were unresolved. $3.7 billion, $498 million in civil penalty monies in 2023. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from the perspective of what's the government getting out of it, I agree. That's not the way it should be looked at.
Yep.
If that's why I was asking, what's the measurement? I could see what the measurement is, or I understand at least what they're thinking when they talk about when they talk about USAID, but this one was a little more murky to me. And by the way, remember the last time in 2016 when Trump took to office, didn't they put someone on who immediately sort of said, yeah, everybody can, stop doing this or that. They skinnied it down even then. So it's not new. My biggest issue would be, and I do not, in reflecting on what everybody said here, I think you're right. I don't know that it can prevent the next, I'll call it financial pandemic. Hey, you can write that one down, Mike.
Okay.
Whatever that is, I don't know that they're going to be able to prevent that because I think it's going to be far more complex given the tools and everything that everybody has access to, and a much harder to unwind and may even be international. Very cool.
That's
One
prediction
one
number
more thing
72 on your bingo card.
you mentioned USAID. The part of that that affects pretty much everybody on this call is World Credit Union Council.
yeah.
Something like half of their budget comes from USAID. And selfishly, I'm concerned because I'm planning on attending World Credit Union Council July meeting, and I hope that they're still around.
Yeah, we were,
There's an announcement today that they're going forward with it.
Good.
yeah, we were just, you're right, on the opening, we were, Mike and I were talking about how we just, hung out in all these different countries because of that. He
It'll
hosted
be in
several of them.
Stockholm, Sweden this year.
Did you host the Singapore one? I can't remember.
Was it? No, I didn't do that. No.
Yeah, I couldn't
Somebody else.
remember.
That was
But,
where you flew your drone.
What's that?
You just flew your drone. That's all. That was
Oh,
the
yeah.
highlight for me.
I remember doing stuff.
Anyway,
Yeah. So, okay, so we were going to move on to the tax piece. So let's talk about what's going on with regards to taxes. And I am not 100% up to date on what that is at the moment. I know Glenn was talking about it. So does anybody want to chime in? Lou, are you up to speed on that at the moment?
I don't know where you're going with this yet.
Well, the
tax thing.
there's the
credit
cap on the
tax
credit
exempt.
cards.
back on the chopping block again.
Yeah, well, first it's the cap on the credit cards. Let's talk about that first too. So they're talking about a 10% cap on interest for credit cards, right? So that's interesting because we have the last big act we had around credit cards was the Card Act, right? Which was enforcing forcing disclosure, those sorts of things. Now we're talking about, and this I think was something that was put in place by Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley, which is interesting because that might as well be, I don't know, Hitler and Churchill working together because they are definitely out. But you know what the average credit card interest rate is, Mike?
Got to be the high 20s.
28.6% is now the average. And we hold a record. There's more credit card debt than ever.
Oh yeah, what are we at? 1.3 trillion.
dollars.
Something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, over a trillion.
And you know how much credit card companies made in interest in 2022 alone?
Well, do the math with the trillion.
130 billion.
Yeah.
With a B. So they proposed to cap the credit card interest rates, and this seems to be right in your alley, Lou. So maybe we'll start here and then we'll jump over to the taxation thing. But what are you guys thinking internally about this and this sort of legislation, particularly something that's bipartisan, bipartisan like this?
So credit unions ideally exist for their communities. They're community-based, so are community banks as well. Credit unions want to help those in their community who need the help the most. A lot of times that's a poorer demographic. And however, credit needs to be priced according to risk. And so that means that lower credit scores typically pay higher APRs. And to be capped at 10% would definitely cause most issuers to want to limit their risk exposure because they have less upside. That would hurt the people who need credit lines the most. It's definitely not going to be good for those people in the community that want those credit lines extended to them.
Yeah, because it's going to make it that much harder because in order to realize the gain that you have been realizing, which you've been using presumably to operate with and provide your services. So what they were saying was that it would apply immediately to all credit cards, both new and existing, for a period of 5 years. That means that every credit card you have right now that's above 10% would immediately be reduced as soon as the new law takes effect. Anybody done the math on that?
When do they propose doing this? When do they propose?
Well, let's see. The law was so the law was just introduced, I think, last week, was it?
Oh wow.
It's
Okay.
Holly Sanders. It would happen immediately. So it's only been introduced. It's not law yet. So they got to have a vote in both chambers before it could be signed into law. So, but it is one of Trump's campaign promises as well. So presumably, if it gets to his
Lowering
desk, he
credit
will
card
sign
rates.
it.
Wow.
So has anybody
So-
done the work
I
it's going to
haven't.
take to figure out what happens? Like, okay, who on this call has a credit card rate for your organization that's over 10%? I presume all of you do for some of your cards because, you know, that's the way it would have to be in order to even be in business, right? Where's Jay?
And to mitigate the risk.
Um, let's see, who's here that could tell us? I saw him a minute ago, but I think he popped off. Oh, Jim Yates. Jim, what's your current credit card rates? It's probably like 5% and 2 because he truly lives the credit union mantra, but
It's it's a little more than 5%. Just a second, I'll tell you exactly.
okay, had a feeling.
Yes, I think everyone's checking their numbers right now.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm wondering in the chat. If you want to put in what your
That'd be kind of
numbers
cool
are.
to see. Get a little
Yeah.
quick little survey.
For our lowest rate is actually 9.99. Unless you want a secured card and it's lower than that, but our rates go up to 15. Depending on
Yeah,
what the-
well, you just since you just interviewed Westcom, I was just looking at theirs. 13% for their active Visa, 15% for their My Rewards, and then 17, 17, and 17. So what happens, Lou? Let's say that when will this thing this
Well,
is
they eliminate that 7%, so down to 10.
right. And so what does that do to your budget? What does that do to Valera? What does that mean?
I'm more worried about every single credit union and community bank, their budget, their net income, everything. Yes, there's non-interest income. There'll still be interest from mortgages and auto loans and HELOCs and things, but the credit card interest is for some credit unions, a major piece of their budget. And to squash that, there's got to be a number of things that would happen immediately. One is credit lines that are over 10%, something would have to happen with those. Like you can't spend any more. That card is now locked until you pay down to some amount, or credit limits get lowered. And because of that, then I suspected there might be some additional defaults because now the person can't use this credit card anymore, and they've already run up their credit line. Say they ran up to 10,000, whatever the credit line is. And no, they can't. If the credit union tries to call it, they can't pay it off right now. So then they default on the credit card. So that means write-offs and charge-offs on top of that. There's a lot of tumbling that could happen if this was enacted that quickly. As quickly as like CFPB gets dismantled, US aid, everybody go home, or half of you go home. If something like that happens that quickly, I think there'd be a lot of immediate kind of knee-jerk reactions.
unless they
Yeah.
unless they
Right.
allow a monthly fee or something like that. You know, if they don't the income
To make up for that,
That's true. There's nothing. Well, if there's no CFPB, you gotta do one or the other, right? If there's no CFPB, then yeah, there's nothing to stop you from. Here's the new thing: you now subscribe to our credit card.
congratulations.
With it, we have a cool TV show hosted by Lou Grill. Lou Grilly will tell you all about whatever he wants to tell you about. You can tune in on the channel. Now, I think that the earliest this could happen would be 1 to 2 months. To be fair, I can't imagine this passing in its current condition. I can't imagine anybody's telling you that, Lou, or anybody else that's involved in this, because it's, I mean, you want to talk about something that could have just those dominoes could fall in a very bad way.
Yeah.
To your point, I think this could really hurt things. It would
The
change
banking lobby would have a problem with that.
everything overnight. Everything overnight.
Well, and it just
But-
seems like financial institutions' margins are getting slimmer and slimmer with, everyone cutting, well, I won't say everyone, but financial institutions cutting their their non-sufficient funds, all that, those fees, and then interchange threat out there still looming. So, and then this coming across, it just seems like it's just getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer to be a financial institution these days.
Just a quick stat. JP Morgan Chase posted 1.65 billion in credit card revenue. And that was the second quarter 21, so that's dated. It's got to be a lot more by now. I have to believe that the large banks are going to push back really heavily. So just imagine that 1.65 billion, if they have much higher. So let's say that cut in half. You know that Jamie Dimon is going to be tugging on some congressmen about this.
Yeah, I don't see it passing in its current condition. It's just was very interesting that I that they had pushed that place. It feels similar to the let's pay off all the student loans kind of dream that happens, doesn't happen, but this one's even more stark and would be, I think, more difficult to put into play.
Yep.
But I also would be at least doing the calculations if I was everyone, because here's what you just said. And this is the thing, Lou. You brought it up. If it happens, like, let's say that it doesn't get through Congress, and because the current president, it's a campaign promise for the current president, he goes, well, I knew that might happen. Executive EO, and writes it up, and then just like the CFPB is being challenged already by, there's a group for the Treasury employees that's challenging that. It'll go probably in the legal, but it skips that other part of the place and winds up in this whole bigger conversation about a constitutional crisis and what the powers of the presidency are, right? Which appear to be being realigned right now, right before our eyes. I mean, it's significant what's been happening there. And what the outcome of it is going to impact everybody and everything for a long, long time, regardless of presumably who's in power. Because if the next group is a left-leaning group, it goes back to that pendulum that Lou was speaking of, which I completely 100%, that is how things work. Oh my God, the house is on fire. Let's put it out. A tsunami later, oh my God, the house is drowning. Let's clean it up, and then we try to burn it down again, and we never find middle ground to dry it out. So we're going to have to figure out how to get to that middle ground, and that always takes time. But the other thing that's interesting about this is we do still have the most crypto friendly the most crypto friendly group we've ever had as an administration in place. And I wonder what that leads me to is, okay, if all this is going on, then does DeFi become a thing, even more than it is? And I don't know, just before we leave, I'd just be curious on what Rob's thoughts are on that.
I don't think we have time for my opinions because I'm going to get ranty.
Okay.
You need to spin your wheel or do your bingo card, but
we don't. We've already done both. No wheels this year.
But look, yeah, the pendulum swings, the tension exists on both sides. It's a two-party system in this country, despite every attempt to, do none of the above. No independent party or other party has ever prevailed. It just is what it is. It's the tension we live in. I think a ton of the EOs, since you mentioned them, even though I keep saying I don't want to talk about politics, it keeps happening.
I mean, unfortunately,
the EOs, a ton of the EOs are going to get wiped out and fought back, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, purification by fire is a strategy. It is what it is.
Well, and then from the thing I was going to go to, Lou, for the taxation was the provisions of the 27 tax cuts and 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA, they're set to expire this year. And there were some things in there about, the taxation of credit unions that were part of that. And I think that's the concern that is that way. And then the other issue is that, the banks have been doing tons of surveys, and what they've discovered in this more connected world is most Americans aren't aware that credit unions are not taxed. And
So Yeah, a couple of quick thoughts on that because we're just about out of time. The I need some of the credit union people on this call because you guys know way more than me about paying taxes. Certainly, credit unions do pay taxes. They pay property taxes on buildings. They pay employer taxes and FICA and all that stuff. If they have vehicles, many credit unions do. They're paying taxes for on those vehicles. So it's not that they don't pay taxes. Credit unions, like other organizations, are not for profits. And not-for-profits then are my CEO when I was at CSCU used to remind me when I would put together business cases, and it's like I would do a business case that was just break even, and he would remind me, not-for-profit is a tax status, not a business model. And it doesn't, you got to make some profit, but profits go back to owners in the form of either qualified dividends or better rates, or so the credit unions, if here's what I'm missing, and I need credit unions to help me out of this. Would pay the thing in question is credit unions should pay taxes on profits like banks do, and those profits though are plowed back into members in the form of other things. So what would these taxes be on? What would be the
Well,
basis
I
for
could tell you, I
taxes?
could tell you some of it would be on executive salaries. That's certainly part of what the TCGA was talking about, was there was an excise tax that was not put towards some of the compensation for the highest, biggest, financial institutions. That's definitely one. But I agree, they continue to pay other taxes. By the way, CUSOs would also kind of become on the chopping block with the ending of this too. So, but I'll let the credit union folks speak if we have a few. We're down to 3 minutes, so if anybody wants to pop in, but I think that the money that we spend on resources is, it's going to have to be, since no one's popping in, it's going to have to be redefined on what gets plowed back to the member. For example, is home banking that we give away for free part of return to the member? Because if we're going to do it on interest, if that's our return, it's not going to be pretty. Because ain't none of us returning nothing, much of anything. So if that's our return, it's not going to put a plug in, because there's about $35 billion out there that Koreans collectively would have to pay in taxes if that were to happen. Add that to the 10%, and I don't know, I guess I was thinking today that there's a great Cuban place I was saying down the road, and they might need some help. So pretty sure I could make Cubans. Anyways, thanks for listening, everyone. And Madison and Lou, thank you for being and Mike always for being one of my de facto. I think we're gonna have to, this year we're gonna have to raise Lou to official honorary host. So I think we're gonna give you a title, Lou. I'll see you at JC. I definitely want to chat with you. Let's all do we have anything else, Madison, that we need to go over?
Nope, I think you're good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us as always. Please support the vendors. Thanks to Rob, thanks to Lou, thanks to Jim Yates, who's always willing, and as always, one of my best friends in the world, especially in this industry, Mike Lawson. It's you think colleagues, but in this industry we have friends, and it's really cool. So I'll leave you with that. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe out there, and support your local CFPB, I guess. I don't know. All right, take care.